Hey YouTubers, Redneck Brian here. Okay, I'm normally not a person to give up on something that's pretty cool. I mainly only will give up on something if I know it's going to be a lost cause. Unfortunately, I have the feeling about this thing here. There's just so many problems. As you can see, I got the engine in, got the plate in. I don't know how he had this mounted. It would have been crazy how he had this mounted, and if it worked. The belt's tight with the steering rod here. The steering rod hits the belt. I even put lifting blocks in underneath the engine. It's still hitting the belt. The back tires, I don't know if it's the axle or if it is the tires. I'll be trying those tires on my racer, are wobblier than anything. They come out like this, both of them. And yes, I did have this engine turning over. It does run. I put a little bit of quick start in. I know it's not good for 2 strokes, but I did not let it run. I don't know. Like I said, I only really give up on something if I know it's going to be a lost cause, and I think this thing is a lost cause. As you can see, the front end's not mounted. To mount the front end, I'm going to have to clearance it. I've already clearanced it here to fit the engine. As you can see, with the frame still there, it would have been rubbing like crazy. So I don't know. I could save the engine, save the jack shaft, save the rear axle, and find a go-kart frame someday and put it into a go-kart. Or I only got $50 into it, so it's not obviously not that much. That was just to go down to pick this thing up, and really, because I had nothing into the Dynamark really. So I don't really know. I don't know. I'm stumped on this thing because there's truthfully, in my opinion, there's absolutely no way this thing could have worked. When the engine turns over, it's spinning the back tires, even with resistance on the back tires. It's still spinning those back tires. So obviously, the engine is misaligned from the jack shaft. So there's problems there. There's problems with the frame. Steering doesn't seem to be too bad, but to put the front end back in, I'm going to have to clearance it. That's why that one bolt was stuck in there, and that's what that bolt was for. It was probably for the engine support, for the engine cradle. But the engine seems to be okay. There's a couple bolts if you're facing it on the left-hand side of the engine, they are stripped. They are working. They're holding right now with smaller nuts on them, and they are tight. I just don't want to over-tighten them because this has threaded rods up into the engine. The engine's actually made in Australia, I believe it said. There's the engine plate right there. Yep, made in Australia. So, if that can tell anybody, if those numbers there can tell me anything about the engine, please let me know. Right there, Type 401, so I believe that would mean it's a 401cc, technically, not, so it's 400 cc's. But, like I said, I'm not normally one to give up on something if it's going to be fun, if it's going to be an interesting project. But I think I'm going to have to do that with this. It's just, it needs so much. It needs so much, and by the time I put all the time into it, it needs brakes. This engine still has to go back. I did not drill any new holes for the engine, but I had the clearance holes for the frame. So I'm thinking that's why those bolts are stripped out. They put the bolts on and then onto the plate, and then they bolted the plate in place. But really, that's not the way you want to do it. It's only being held in by 3 bolts because it's floating in the air right there. It's sure, yes, I like it. It's cool, but I think it's just going to be a lost cause. It's just going to need way too much. It'd be cool to start off with an actual frame that would actually work. Maybe a frame that already has a torque converter on it, and start off with something like that. Then deal with all the issues that this thing has. Really, you got to start off with a solid steel steel chassis, like a steel base, similar to how I built that over there. It's just not worth it. And the way that those back tires are wobbling, like I said, I don't know if it's the tires, or if it's the rims, or if it's the axle. If the axle's bent on this thing. Also, like I said, you turn it over and you're spinning the back tire. So even if you had the brakes all the way on, you're gonna burn out your brakes like nothing. So I don't know. I can crank it over for maybe not. I don't have the jumper cables hooked up. But anyways, if anyone wants to see it turn over, I can turn it over and I can show you that it's physically pushing itself at the back. Let me know in the comments section below. So I'm thinking it's a lost cause to keep on working on this. I think this here alone, this belt, is too tight. As if you take the belt, the steering rod's not touching it. Turn the torque converter. Look. And that should be looser. I know that for a fact. Because right now, that's in the back engine points. So, I think I would like to keep the engine. I'd love to keep the engine. Keep the torque converter. But it's just finding something to put it into. I think it's worth more money to sell it. Or sell the engine as it sits. If it does run, it will fire. I could take the belt off and I can get this engine running physically. That's not going to be a big deal to do. Let me know in the comment section below also, what is an engine like this worth? Like, with or without the torque converter. So, just let me know. It's electric start, 400cc, recently rebuilt. New plugs. I know that doesn't necessarily matter, but you can tell it's got new plugs. Coils work. It was firing on both cylinders. Obviously, like I said, I will get it running and with the fuel I have, but I think it's just not worth it on this existing chassis. And I was thinking about putting handlebars on. I had all kinds of ideas, and then this is just stumping me with these engine mounts. It's pissing me. It's getting to the point that it's starting to piss me off, and that it's not working the way it should be. And I should have made a stipulation that the engine was bolted back into place, but I didn't. So, but even if the engine was bolted back into place, I think it would still have that same problem. I pretty much know it would, because there's no other way of mounting this engine. It can't go back any further. It's in 3 holes that were previously drilled into the frame. And see, at the front 2 holes, it did work. It did fit, but the belt was way too tight. So I knew there was something wrong right from there. So that's why I moved the plate back, and I had to cut the frame. So if I scrap the frame, obviously, not the engine. I'm going to save everything off of it. Still all good parts on here. I'm just debating on what to do with it. So I don't really want to spend any more money on it. The bolts I'll obviously keep because I can use them on future projects. Nothing wrong with them. I only spent $20 extra with all the bolts and the washers I bought, so that's not a big deal. So yeah, here it is. Beginning and the end most likely will be, but like I said, I don't want to give up. But when I know it's a lost cause, really, you got no choice but to give up. So I'll talk to everyone later. Please keep it redneck like always, and please subscribe and comment.